You're supposed to start.
I'm supposed to start?
You're supposed to do the introduction.
Okay. What's going on, guys? It's Eric. I'm here with Isabella today as her guest on the Relinquishing Control podcast, and we are here to talk about a whole bunch of really cool, fun stuff. You might learn a lot, so stick around till the end. We're going to cover some really, really cool topics.
That was really good.
Let's discuss. Come on.
I'll let Eric start off.
I'm interested to hear your perspectives. Have you ever used a dating app before?
Yes, but I've always regretted and then deleted.
I think that's like the overwhelming majority of experiences I've heard.
Yeah.
Because the people who go on dating apps, like, if you just go up and talk to people, it's not hard to meet people.
Yeah.
Or that's like the vibe anyway. And if you're a guy on a dating app, it's so bad because a lot of girls, they just use dating apps for fun. They don't actually, like, meet up with people on it.
So do guys.
So, some do, I guess, but I don't know how that split goes.
It goes both ways.
I guess so. It's just like a joke, because a girl wants to get approached by... This is my understanding, anyway.
Yes.
A girl would much rather prefer to be approached by a good-looking, confident, outgoing dude who's respectful and, you know, who kind of has a good vibe, rather than talking to 1 out of 1,000 dudes she matches with in a day on a dating app.
Yes.
I think one is much more flattering and much more appealing. Approaching somebody in person makes you, out of the billions of people on the planet, it just makes you a one of one.
Right.
It makes you unique.
I would agree with that. But what would you say for the girls, or the guys, I guess, don't find themselves being approached? Like, because that was my personal experience, and that's why I decided to get a dating app, because I would never be approached by anyone.
Interesting. Yeah, that's actually, I've never looked at that from the female perspective, but yeah, the ideal world is that men are out here approaching girls and you know, doing so in a respectful and not weird way, of course, right?
Yeah.
And I think we have an issue of just kind of being closed off. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're a girl and you want to be approached, like, number one, dress well, look good, and look approachable. Are you saying I wasn't dressed well when I was... maybe you weren't. I don't know. Maybe you weren't. But this is just general advice,
no,
okay?
I know.
If you're looking to be approached, you know, have open body language. Don't be hunched over a phone or, you know, don't have your head down. You know, be looking around. If you're a girl, I'll give you some of the male perspective. If you're a girl looking to get a guy to come up to you, what you do is, I don't know if you can have a lay testament to this, but if a guy's interested in you and he sees you smile at him or something, or you, like, say hi to him, like, he's gonna keep that ball rolling. Right. And if he's not, and if he doesn't turn that into, like, getting a number or something, then it's just like, oh, it was a nice interaction, and call it a day. Mm-hmm. But I think women need to be more proactive in, like, showing signs of interest to people. Okay. And I think men also need to stop being so afraid of approaching girls that show them interest.
Right. And I think that kind of connects to one of the other topics that I thought would be interesting to discuss, is, like, the difference in perspectives and how, you know, you were saying, like, men need to have less fear of, like, approaching, and women need to be more approachable, like, more proactive. Mm-hmm. So do you see how that could create, like, if the man is afraid and the woman's not proactive enough, do you see how that can create, like, the lack of interaction or just, like, no action is taken? So that's kind of why I feel like there's this, like, divide.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you can't force people who are timid and afraid and bleak to kind of step out of their shoes and do the bold thing.
That's true.
So maybe you can call this some natural selection. I mean, I don't know, man. Fortune favors the bold, right? So if you're a girl and you can give a glance or two to a guy you're interested in, or, you know, that's typically the extent. Like, that's all you need to do, really, in my opinion. Like, give a couple glances. You know, don't have RBF.
I wonder if I have an RBF.
I don't think so. I mean, that's a simple hello, hi, what's your name? Ask some questions and be curious. Like, that can set off a conversation that'll change your life. And people just turn that down every day because they're afraid. Right.
I think that simply just having that confidence, like, women find that so attractive. At least me as a woman. Like, you find that attractive when a man is not, like, intimidated to approach you and, like, not intimidated to show he's interested, because they know when they approach that there's a chance of you not showing interest back, but they're not afraid to take that risk of being rejected. And I think that is, like, very attractive, to, like, be confident enough in yourself that you're like, I don't care what the outcome is. Like, I just want to show my interest and see what happens, you know?
Yeah, that's something backed by, like, the literature and all the research,
really?
too,
Wow.
and, like, surveys. And
so I'm quoting
women,
literature right now.
Right, you don't want a wishy-washy guy who isn't really sure and he can't really make decisions, and, you know, like, you want to be able to ask your husband, right, hey, what are we getting for dinner? And he's just like, all right, we should go to this place at this time.
100%.
Right, you don't want to go back and forth, and he's like, oh, well, I don't know, you can pick, I'm not really sure.
No.
Like, you don't, it's my understanding, girls don't want that. Even think prehistorically, right? Like, the ones who survived were the ones that were making decisions and making moves that, you know, allowed things to move forward, not the people who sat there indecisive.
100%. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, these memes on Instagram, but there's so many memes where it's like, when he asks me, like, where I want to go for dinner or something instead of picking, and it's like, the girlfriend's always, like, pissed because he's making her decide where she wants to eat. Because, like, that's actually, like, a huge thing. Like, just, like,
it is.
Being decisive, Oh,
God. And we can talk about the divorce rate, too. Oh, man. It's very high. The divorce rate's horrible.
Why do you think that is?
I think because men don't learn how to be men, and women don't learn how to be women, quite frankly.
Oh, shoot. I think Never mind, it was glitching.
I feel like people don't really know how to kind of fit their role.
Yeah.
And we've seen in society, there's, like, this idea that, you know, women should be more male, like, manly, because, you know, men make more money, there's more male CEOs and things like this, and so there's this image, like, this message portrayed that's like, women shouldn't date ever, they shouldn't have kids, and they shouldn't, you know, find a strong, confident, you know, guy.
Right. And there's, like, multiple things that I could add on to that, but...
Hit me with your best shot.
Well, they're both really good shots, to be honest. I'll start off with you mentioning how people say women should be more manly and, like, not dependent on a man for those things.
Yeah.
And how you were describing that. I think also a huge part of it is women are becoming more tolerable of men treating them badly. And this could also be tied back into social media because it makes everything take so much less effort. But there's this, like, sense of security, like, if I'm not dependent on a man and I'm successful and independent on my own, then, like, if things go wrong or, like, he stops treating me well or, like, he's not consistent, then, like, I have that to bounce back on and I don't have to be reliant on someone else and settled, like, in a situation where I'm unhappy, you know? I don't know, that's kind of how I view why people encourage women to kind of follow that path more with this generation.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing, I don't think.
No, definitely not.
I don't think it's a good thing to be able to be independent and provide for yourself and take care of yourself on your own.
Yeah,
and to be very successful and have a lucrative career. I think all that's great.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to construe that idea with, you know, oh, you either have a lucrative career or you rely on a man and you're a dependent and you're just a housewife and, like, and there's, like, all this negative connotation around, like, raising a family and things like this, when in reality, I mean, well, like, think what makes people happy. I feel like people discount, like, the whole dating, family life, marriage life, and a lot of people you find they just kind of live as if, you know, they're never going to get in a relationship.
Yeah.
And maybe this is like again, this is kind of like my own personal view. I kind of hold others to the standard I hold myself to. So it's all personal, but.
And I think what you were saying about how it's kind of seen as, like, one or the other, and it doesn't have to be so black and white. I think that's an important thing to point out, definitely.
Yeah.
And also to expand on that more, I know that, at least from my experience, from my perspective, there is a lot of negative talk nowadays from, like, women towards women who choose to be, like, a stay-at-home mom or choose to, like, take more of a traditional role in the family. And there's a lot of, like, negative outlook on that with the way that, like, our society is evolving. I guess it's more frowned upon for women to still be in that, like, traditional role. So I thought that was also interesting.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, people should do what they want, but we also don't want to be telling the next generation that having kids is a bad thing,
right.
and that raising a family is a bad thing.
Right, 100%.
We don't want to be teaching our kids that all they're good for is being an economic unit just to make a lot of money, and then to die.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're a human being.
Yeah.
So I think there is, like, some black and white ideas that we kind of grow up on, but you know, people can live however they want, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think you don't want to tell a whole generation that having kids is the end of their life.
Right.
But you also don't want kids having kids.
True. That's another good point.
I don't know. If you're rich
maybe,
like that, go for it. Do what you want.
Yeah, exactly. I think the big thing, what it comes down to, is like people are going to do what they want and kind of not trying to put that pressure on them to do things the way that you think is the right way to do it, because everyone has their own view, especially with the way that like our society is evolving. I think it's important to just look at that with a lens of like non-judgment towards other people, because there is a lot of variety and people have their own individual values. So not looking down on people whose decisions maybe you can't understand or don't agree with is like really huge.
Don't worry about what other people are thinking, doing, scheming, saying, whatever. It literally does not matter.
Right. I think it really comes down to like common humanity and like having empathy for other people. That's like huge for sure.
Have empathy.
Yeah.
But also learn how to control it too.
Oh yeah, that's important too. Trust me, I've had my
you can be
I've had my experiences with that. That's important.
You can be there are some genuinely insane people out there that will take advantage of you and lie to your face every day and suck you for everything you're worth and then leave you with nothing. Like that's a thing. You gotta be careful.
Yeah. Let's talk about here, I'll say my piece on this, and then you can say your opinion. So
yeah, let's discuss.
I remember this was not on the podcast, but we discussed in a previous conversation we had about how you think a slow burn is like more commonly than not. Like
what was in the background?
Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah.
That was one of my roommates.
Oh, nice. Anyway, continue.
How a slow burn is like healthier for relationships, but from my experience, I'm not saying that a slow burn isn't healthier, because I do agree with that to a point, but I also feel like I have a pretty good idea of like what I'm looking for and what I want, and so and it's very easy for me to notice that and spot that in someone, like off of having a few conversations with them. Someone knocking on your door.
Okay, they're just knocking on every door. They're probably trying to rob me.
Oh.
They're just like walking down the hallway.
Do we need to call the cops?
Shut my door. No. No. Anyway.
But anyways.
Slow burn.
Yes. So how would you describe it? Because I think for me, at least from my experience, it's very easy for me to tell if someone has qualities that I admire and that I would look for in a partner versus if someone does not have those qualities. Like, that's something I'm very good at picking up on, like, pretty quickly when I'm getting to know someone. So then when I like someone or, like, find someone who has qualities that I admire, I get very excited and I struggle to be, like, chill. Because I'm just, like, you know, like, I feel like it's rare to, like, find someone with, like... I actually just made a podcast episode about how I feel like my, like, expectations in, like, a relationship are very, like what I'm looking for in a partner is, like, very specific, and so that's what causes me to get, like, very excited and, like, ahead of myself when I do notice, like, qualities that I admire.
Yeah.
So how can one... I feel like I'm answering my own question, but how would you balance, like, a slow burn with, like, someone who you know, like, this is someone that's, like, not like other people, that, like, stands out to you. But it's, like, slow burn's healthier still.
Well, let's just... lust and love are two different things, of course.
For sure.
So I'll drop some fundamental rules I think everyone should follow, and I think any, like, relationship therapist, coach, whoever is going to tell you the same thing. Okay. It's that you should keep... You know, when you first meet someone, you should keep dates limited to, like, once a week. Twice is pushing it, but, like, once a week... you know, attraction is both spending time together and also spending time away. Right. It's like going to the gym, right? You go there, you lift the weights, and then the attraction kind of grows when you spend time apart. And then you're excited to go again and get all your gains. So that's something I see people violate. A relationship shouldn't be your life. You know, that's a fundamental principle if you want to have, like, a successful relationship. You need to have a life of your own. Exactly. So that's kind of where the slow burn comes in. You know, you keep it to a minimum, and it's a very strategic thing to do. It's something you learn. It's a skill. Is saying, I really want to talk to this person right now, but I have work to do, and you know, I need to kind of, you know, I can't be giving all my time to someone, right? So you selectively give your time to people. Right. And I think that's a very powerful thing to do, is being able to say no, and then also being able to say yes. Yeah. So having, like, the self-control and, like, the self-discipline. Yeah. A lot of people click with someone, and it's like, oh my God, we're gonna get married. It's like you don't even know each other.
Yeah.
It's like you don't really know who this person is. Like, is this person gonna be able to like be a long-term partner to you? You don't know who you're dealing with until you really know who you're dealing with. And so that's also where the slow burn comes in too, is kind of being strategic in how you get to know somebody. Mm-hmm. And maybe I look too much into it, but I've been in relationships where I kind of made my beliefs known, and my partner would kind of mimic my beliefs one-to-one and be like, oh my God. And then they actually had a completely different set of values and beliefs, and so it was never going to work out, but they just kind of copied what I believe just so it would work out. Because that's kind of where you kind of have to understand, kind of keeping some power to yourself and kind of seeing what the other person's about before you really show all your cards. So that's another part of the slow burn. You can't sacrifice yourself to somebody who you don't know.
Yeah, of course not. So when it comes to that, my question is because I'm a person who's very, like, open and expressive of, like, what I'm thinking and feeling. And I've always been that way. So, like, if it comes to a slow burn, am I supposed to just, like, hold that all in? Is that, like, the healthy way to do that from your perspective?
Hold what in?
If I meet a guy and I'm like, I'm super into him, or like into him. I don't want to say super because it's a slow burn. But if I'm
you can be super into somebody, but still keep things cool and keep the river flowing.
So if I'm into him and I'm someone who's very expressive of like how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, should I still keep that to myself? Because would that ruin the slow burn if I was showing that part of myself so early on? Like, I'm curious.
The slow burn is, well, you're dating, so you're going out together. You guys are seeing each other like once a week or whatever. And so a part of that is, if you like something about them, this is something people don't do. They hide appreciation and they hide what they think. Yeah. But how is holding in what you think going to work out for you? That doesn't really do anything for you. Worst case, like, say you do say what you think, and the person doesn't like you. It's like, well, okay, then
it wasn't gonna work out anyway then.
Yeah, but if you hide what you're thinking and you hide what you're gonna say and you kind of keep things in, it's like, you're not allowing the other person to get to know you as you are.
Right. So it's about having.
And of course, go for it.
It's about having, like, that balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just because you go on a date or two, it's like, you don't want to throw yourself at the guy, but it's like, you want to make it known that there's interest. You don't want to be like, hey, I had a really good time on our last date. Let's do it again next week. Are you free, Saturday, whatever, right? I want to go, let's go on a hike or something, right? Like that's good.
Yeah.
Less is more.
I feel like I'm getting free dating coaching right now.
You're welcome.
Alright, so we are transitioning now into the topic of breakups. I did a lot of editing because there was a lot of rambling going on, so there was no really, like, intro to this part, so I just wanted to let you know.
Breakups are almost always a good thing. I don't think any breakup I've ever had, I don't think I've reflected on it after a prolonged period of time and said, wow, that was horrible. Yeah. That shouldn't have happened. It's like, it happened for a reason and it worked out. It worked out for everyone.
Right. And I think that's such, like a healthy mindset to have about breakups, is, like, it's always a good thing. Even if, when it's happening, obviously, it doesn't feel good, and you don't think it's a good thing, and it feels like the end of the world. But it always is a good thing, because you do look back on it, like you were saying, and you're like, that makes sense why that happened. I wasn't meant to be that person.
So you accept it.
Yeah. It's not worth the extra energy when I could be putting all that into myself. And I think that's what's huge about breakups, is, like, taking all that energy that you were putting into the relationship and just put it back into yourself. Like, fueling yourself.
Eventually, it all comes around.
Yeah. But I think, just with the way I view life in general, like, my beliefs, is we can't really control, like, the timing of, like, any of the, like, external events that occur. Like, the people that, like, enter our lives and leave our lives. Like, we can't control the timing of that. We don't choose, like, this person is going to enter my life at 5 p.m. on a Saturday. Like, we don't decide that. Like, it just happens. And so I think that, like, something that's huge, at least with the way that I view relationships, is no one is ever going to be 100%, like, I've worked through all my shit, I'm perfect, I'm relationship ready. I don't... Are you disagreeing with me? Okay.
But go on.
No one's ever gonna be, like, there's never, like, a perfect moment to, like, start dating or enter a relationship. I think that is kind of just part of, like, the flux of life. Like, if you're entering a relationship and maybe you have, like, some baggage, but, like, you're working through it, you're not putting it on your partner. I think, like, it's huge for building, like, an emotional connection and for, like, being supportive of each other, for that person to be, like, not take responsibility for that and take on that emotional toll, but to be accepting and, like, understanding of that. I think that's part of, like, having, like, unconditional love and care for someone. It's huge to, like, not view them as, like, you have to be this perfect person, otherwise I won't date you. You have to be, like, 100% relationship ready. Like, I just think that no one is ever 100% perfect. No one's ever 100% ready. I think it's huge to just be cognizant of that when you are dating.
I liked a lot of what you said. No, don't get me wrong. It's not their fault, but it is their responsibility.
Yeah.
That's your responsibility to get through that and put yourself in a good position. You also have the issue of finding someone who kind of matches what you're looking for. That's also kind of a hard part.
For sure.
The more experience you get, the pickier you get, because you kind of realize what games people play and how people kind of play cards, and, you know, your dreams are shattered, basically. The fantasy's gone. You realize people aren't as nice as they seem sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that's something.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned you mentioned not being 100% ready, and I do agree with that. I think you don't have to be an endless self-improvement project to be ready for dating. I think dating's an excellent thing. I think it can open up the opportunity for a real love to form, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I think everyone deserves to experience that, given you know, they put the work in themselves. But you don't have to be perfect to start dating again, but you also have to be dateable if you're going to start dating again.
So define dateable.
You don't have any attachment issues that might be like a grave danger to your relationship. And maybe this is a bit of personal experience too. Like, ultimately, whenever I'm out of a relationship, it's like I'm never hopping into another one right away. Because then there's a lot to reflect on and a lot to think about, and you know, you come to your realizations with time. But you can't have like some mental illness or some trauma going on or some sort of... Well, this is my opinion, okay? I think ultimately at the end of the day, dating is like a mutual game of giving.
Right.
And so if you're not in a position where you can give, you're not going to be in a position to receive, and the other person can't receive, and the other person, you know, might just be giving and getting nothing back. And so it's not a relationship. It's just kind of like a contract. This is why you have to be vigilant when you're looking around for people, is to make sure this person, number one, isn't insane, and number two, doesn't have unresolved issues that'll make, you know, intimacy and connection and healthy dialogue impossible. That's why the slow burn is good. You can figure all that out. Yeah.
Just wanted to give you guys another update. We are transitioning into a new topic once again. This one is kind of talking about, how do you know if someone is truly your person? Is that just something that exists, or is that more so something that you create?
I guess what I'm getting at is, like, is there this, like, innate knowing of, like, yes, this is my person, and I'm not just doing this because I'm comfortable, and I'm not just doing this... First of all, I don't think that your person will always make you feel comfortable, so that's my belief, but I think some people choose relationships based off of, like, comfort, knowing if, like, that's your person versus just, like, oh, this is the person I care about, but they're not the person, like, I want to actually be with forever. Like, I think a lot of people... settle in situations because they care about someone and because they're like, well, there's nothing, like, actually wrong with our relationship. Like, it's a good and healthy relationship. People settle in those situations, I think, out of, like, this fear of, like, not finding, like, the right person, or, like, honestly, like, I empathize with that because I can understand completely, like, why someone would think, well, I might not ever find someone like this person. Like, I can empathize with that, and, like, the fear of, like, not having a better match out there. Like, I can totally empathize with that. How can you, like, truly know if, like, this is, like, your person? What's your belief system on that? Because I'm still learning mine.
Yeah, I would love to discuss that. And you mentioned that sometimes some people may never find their person, and that happens, right? Not everyone has a happy ending.
Yeah, that's true.
Sadly, right? It sucks, but
that's true.
You know, how do you know if someone's your person? Well, you kind of create your person.
Yeah.
There's an innate aspect of, like, okay, the vibe's good, we get along, our humor's good, the chemistry is really, really good, and there's not a single dull moment. Okay, that's part one of knowing if someone's your person.
Yeah.
But that lacks genuine, like, deep, intimate connection. Like, you can have a really good vibe with someone, and you guys could have the same sense of humor, laugh all the time, right? Everything is super awesome.
Yeah.
But you also have to build on top of that, and build that intimacy, and build, like, those honest conversations and that openness and all of that. And that's kind of how you get your person. You find someone who has really good chemistry, someone who captivates you, and someone who's captivated by you, and you build on top of that. You go out on dates, slow burn, you get to know each other, you learn about each other, and if you like what you see, and you just keep things going, and you keep things fun and lighthearted, right? Dating's not like a business game, right? The reason you go out on a date is to be your most authentic self and get to understand who somebody is. If you're hiding who you are, like, what's the point of doing it, right? You're not, you're acting like it's a business transaction. Like, baseline, really good chemistry, same humor, same fundamental beliefs, all those sort of principles and values and lifestyle, all that's so important in varying degrees, and then you build on top of that. Some people you can have really good chemistry with, but they're just not capable of having those deep conversations, having that intimacy, and allowing a relationship to build. For sure. But others are. So I'm going to discount, like, spiritual ideas regarding it, like, oh, soulmates are out there. I think that's kind of silly. Your soulmate is someone who chooses you and you choose them, and you both have really, really good chemistry. 100%. And that's a wrap. Yeah. Chemistry and hard work. That's my opinion. That's my, like, dating standard anyway. You have to have met yourself as deeply as, others have met themselves. Like, if the person you're talking to hasn't met themselves as deeply as you have, then it's like, you might have good humor and chemistry and all that, but it's like, there's going to be things that pop up that may not be resolvable on their end. Yeah,
I think that's huge. The thing you mentioned about, like, soulmates and not, like, staying in an unhealthy relationship just because you believe that this person is your soulmate, I think that, like, that's a scary thing that can happen to a lot of people, because they mistake, like, the emotional investment and, like, the toxic pull for, like, that soulmate, like, feeling. Like, they're basing it all on, like, this feeling that they get, rather than, like, and I actually made an episode about this too, like, balancing your emotions with logic, like, finding that balance of, like, maybe I have, like, an emotional attachment to this person, but logically, like, this is not a healthy relationship, and I think that's, like, huge to like balance both of those and have both of those in a relationship.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom to understand if someone's a little sketchy.
For sure.
Because people, they play tricks, and they know how to seduce you, and they tell you what you like to hear, and I'm very cognizant of it now, because I've fallen for some tricks in the past. Yeah. People tell you what they want to hear or what you want to hear, but it's all for their own gain. Yeah. So you got to be wise. Be wise. Sure. Be smart. Yeah. I think your past is important, and I think it's something you have to be responsible for. And ideally, you can talk about your past with somebody in a way where you don't have to lie or deceive or tell half truths. Yeah. Because that's important to build connection with someone, is understanding where they came from and how they live their life, and being able to have those conversations where you feel like you don't need to lie and you don't have to bend the truth. Yeah. That's the ultimate best thing for a relationship. So,
and I think definitely, like, a huge part of, like, finding that person is, like, someone who you're truly comfortable with, like, being honest about that, because if you don't feel comfortable being honest with this person, you feel like they're going to hold your past against you, and they're going to judge you, and they're not going to hold space for you, and if they're not going to do those things, then that can't be your person, because you deserve, this is me speaking to everyone who's listening, like, you deserve to feel, like, safe in your relationship, and you deserve someone who accepts you, like, unconditionally for, like, who you are. So that's, like,
of course.
I think that's kind of where the tricky part plays in, is, like, the people who had the privilege of growing up in the more secure household, the more secure environment, have those, healthier relationship patterns, and then those who didn't have that experience obviously don't have those behaviors, like, naturally. And I think that's what can make it so tricky for those who have had the upbringing that causes them to have more of those issues that show up in relationships. I think that's what makes things so tricky for those people, is, like, the only people who really will accept them or, like, give them the chance is people who also have those issues, and that just creates this, like, messiness. And so it kind of creates this divide, I guess, that's like out of our control.
There are two separate types of people out there for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, everyone, there's someone for everyone, at the end of the day, ultimately. There's someone for everyone. We all have to have our brains develop. We all make silly decisions, and we all do things that we kind of have to atone for, of course. No one's perfect. But ultimately, how you deal with that is kind of what determines the track of your future. It's like, okay, well, I've made bad decisions in the past. Am I going to learn from this, or am I going to allow this to define me?
Yeah.
Like, you want to be careful of how your actions set you up for life.
Right. I think learning from your experiences is huge.
Yeah. Always be learning. It's important.
It is. Thank you for hanging out and having this informal conversation with me.
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well. I learned a lot.
I did too.
Yeah, thanks. Do you want me to, like, refer your YouTube or something?
No, that's fine. Okay. I'm just here to hang out.
All right, well, thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thank you.